Hey guys, this is Brad from Blue Nile Farm. Welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about how to assess a gravel driveway after making it through the winter. Now today it's July and almost July 4th for that matter. I'm in northeastern Ohio, so I deal with the big heavy winter, wet springs and falls, and so we have a lot of different weather that attacks our problem. A lot of freezing, snow, a lot of plowing of the driveway, and last year we've had some massive snow. So a lot of plowing has occurred. Now, last fall, I've done a couple videos on how I worked this driveway and everything from potholes to adding stone to regrading it. And I kind of want to give you an assessment of where we're at today and how you, if you are a property owner, how you can do the same thing. So stay tuned. I'm going to talk about my gravel driveway, my opinion of how to assess it and what I want to do about it. And hopefully it's something that may help you down the road when dealing with your own driveway. So stay tuned. So when it comes down to gravel driveways, a lot of people have a lot of opinions about how to manage your gravel driveway. And that may depend on where you live. It may depend on what tools you actually have to deal with your gravel driveway. For example, if you don't own a tractor and you don't own implements, you're already behind the eight ball when it comes down to a gravel driveway, because gravel driveways need maintenance, and a tractor with implements makes the world go a lot smoother. Because gravel driveways are one of those things that needs, in my opinion, maintenance at least twice a year. Maintenance and grading, maintenance and weed control, maintenance in, because as you drive on it and things settle, you need to kind of keep things moving and keeping your center line crowned. And we'll talk about that today. If you have to do it by hand, it's possible, but it's a lot of work and it's very frustrating, and you'll find that having the right tools with equipment makes a big deal. And realistically, if you have the ability to rent the equipment or have a friend that has the equipment, I suggest you do that. And you probably can find some in your area that can help you maintain your gravel driveway at a cost, of course, but it might be the best alternative for you. You know, gravel is cheaper than concrete, and you can really do whatever you want to do with it. It depends on how much do you want to tolerate. When I grew up, my dad didn't do anything with our gravel driveway for 15 years, and I don't even think he ever brought a load of stone in. So we just kept driving up and down the driveway, even though it wasn't that big, but we did. He never brought in any stone. Now my driveway here, I've been here since I built the house, I built the farm, I built everything here. So this driveway was built for the last 30 years. And since I've owned this property, it's had so many different types of gravel put in here, and it was never consistent. And that's because of my lacking of knowledge of what was going on, and listening to contractors that just wanted to make a buck off of me, saying, oh, let's just drop stone, or don't drop stone. So up to last year when I started doing YouTube videos, I started actually attacking this driveway, because for years all I did was grade it and regrade it. And what happened is I had a lot of fines in my driveway, but not any stone. And what I mean by stone, stone like this, 57. This is stone that I chose to put in. The stone ranges from anywhere from a 1/4 inch to basically an inch in length. And this is the stone that a lot of people use in my area. But the problem is, per ton, it's $33 a ton in my area. And people have made comment on some previous YouTube videos on how expensive it is. And unfortunately, that's my cost in my area. And at $33 a ton, that's my cost. That's me going in with my dump truck, loading my dump truck up and bringing it home and dumping it on my driveway. If I was paying somebody to do this, I'm sure it's going to cost you at least $50 or more per ton for them to go get that stone and bring it and dump it in your driveway. And that is going to be pretty expensive. So last year I brought in probably 20 ton, it was actually 16 ton worth of stone for 450 foot of this driveway. And when I did it, it definitely needed it, because my philosophy behind having a gravel driveway is, especially when you have fines, the finer your driveway with the stone, the more opportunity you have to create a pothole. And what a pothole is basically an area that gets hollowed out and forms into a hole based on driving, or maybe somebody was plowing and they hit it and they gouged the dirt and the gravel, and through tires and repetition going over it, keeps pushing out the dirt over and over. So the surrounding might be hard, but the center is soft. So you basically have to kind of break the crust around the outside of it and refill it with stone and flatten it back out. And you can do that in a lot of different ways, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. But the bottom line is, once that's done, every time I graded my driveway, it wouldn't take much to create a pothole, just because the ground was soft. And what's nice about having the stone like this is that I kind of put this stone and it mixes in with the fines, and actually, when it dries, creates like a real hard concrete type base. So what I've learned over the years is that when you can mix the fines with an actual stone, when it locks in tight. And I'm going to show you here in a minute what I'm talking about. So when I made these videos, people may comment about, when I was making the potholes and filling them in, that they would reoccur. Well, they didn't reoccur. And that's because I feel that, based upon getting that mix between the solids and the fines, it really bound together and worked out well. And I did address the pothole problem by digging around them. But, some people have an opinion about how deep to dig. And, the bottom line is, you're going to find out real fast, because if your potholes do reemerge, you're going to have to address them again and probably do a better job of breaking around the crust on the outside and repacking them. But let me show you, if I was going to assess my driveway, what I'm looking for. So ultimately, down the slope of the middle of the driveway where you see this grass growing is what we call the crown. And that crown normally is about 2 to 4 inches above the outsides. And the idea behind that is, so once you have a crown, water will shed and go off to the sides. Now, if you have a driveway like mine where water may travel down the driveway, or maybe it'll trade off this driveway, it all depends on what you want. Also, I want to make sure that I have enough ample stone across my driveway that I have some kind of traction. So before, about a year ago, when I started the YouTube videos, I did not replace stone for probably at least 15 years. So the stone that I actually had got ground down, pressed into the ground. Well, I have attachment on my tractor that I can actually go in and dig into the stone and actually bring it up to the surface, the bigger stones. And then it's almost like, it looks like gives you the appearance that I reapplied gravel to my driveway. But unfortunately, as you drive over it, it packs back down again and it becomes tight. And again, it's just too many fines. So by adding the stone, really made a difference of binding everything together. But I want to show you over here what it looks like when the stone is actually bound, and I really like that look to it, because I know it's going to adhere to my stone base. So if you look down here, you can see how the stone is well embedded in the fines, and it's locked in really tight. That's what I really want as my base, all the way down the driveway, where that stone is locked in. And no matter what I do, I'm not going to be able to pull these stones out with my foot, because they're not loose. But if I add about an inch or two more bit of stone on top of it, it's going to hold in really well. And that's really the plan. So that's one thing you want to do to keep it moving. So as I traveled down my driveway, and when I was showing you about that embedded stone, what it tells me is I actually need to apply more gravel to this driveway, and I actually know that. But right now, I really don't have the money or the time that I really want to go mess with this gravel driveway, probably till a little bit later in the year. And the reason for that is because I have a construction project going on as far as building barns. A lot of money is going out toward that. I need a lot of gravel up by the barns because of it being more of a mud pit, and so money can go out there. So bottom line, it's more about money management and time right now, and I'm also in the middle of baling hay, so I really don't have a lot of time to screw around with this driveway. But it doesn't really take that long to get it done, but it does need gravel. And like I said, it's $33 a ton. It's going to cost me about $600 or better just to get gravel in here, because I'm going to expect to probably put in 2 loads based upon what I've seen going up and down this driveway, to fill in additional stone to raise it up a little, and to cover up the bare spots where the stone in here is embedded. But what I want to do today, more so than anything else, is attack my weed problem. I don't want these weeds to get any worse than they are, and they're in the crown. So my plan is to grade this driveway without digging into the stone base and wrecking that base that we created. Now, sure, I can break it up a little bit and drive back over and repack it, but I don't see no benefit in digging into my driveway. So like if you owned a power rake and you want to come up and down this driveway, you can do that, but that's not something I want to do. Same thing with my TR3, which is basically a tractor mounted unit. I can put scarf fires down in this ground and tear this driveway all up, and kind of like a power rake, but without having the hydraulics that are actually making a moving part. But what I want to do realistically is just attack the problem of the grass and the edges just to maintain it. And then I'll also pull loose gravel and fill in this other area to get it more uniform. So when I come down and I tailgate additional stone at a later time this year, then it'll all kind of come together. Now my other problem is we had a lot of snow this year. My buddy came over with this plow. He stuck his plow into this driveway and he kind of dug up some spots. They didn't turn into potholes, but I want to kind of get them recovered so that when we do have a rain, they kind of pack and work themselves down. So those are really the biggest issues. I also want to show you something else too. That part of the reason why a lot of times you have grass growing down the center line is because people don't drive on the grassy areas. You know, when you have grass and if you want to start to tear out your grass, the more often you are able to drive down the line, the better off you are. So like if I would drive staggered down the driveway and drive across this, then that's the best thing to do. Now this grass isn't growing from the ground up technically. Basically it's grass seeds that flies through the air, or when you're mowing grass, well, like me, I bring hay home all the time, so grass seeds are actually falling down this driveway, and then they land on the driveway itself, and they start to take off, and they actually start to grow roots, and they actually start to bind into the soil. But they're in probably not even a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch into the ground, so they're very easy to come out. So to get them out, you just have to have any kind of implement. It could be a box scraper, it could be a back blade. It doesn't take much to go down the driveway and scrape this area off, and then reform it and create a crown and pull everything back. You know, the longer and the deeper and the bigger they get, the harder it's going to be for you to tear them out. You know, and that's really what it comes down to. If you own a skid steer, you probably don't even have to work that hard. All you have to do is get your track into the grass and start turning it, and you're going to rip out all the roots by just going down here. But you want to attack these root problems. Another way you can attack the root problems, if you don't have it, you can do it manually with a pick. That's an easy way. You can do it that way, or if you have one of those propane burners and just run through and heat these up and go down the line, at least you'll kill the grass growing, and then you don't have to do anything. That might be the easiest. But again, those are options that you have, because ultimately it's this. You want to get this driveway, and if you need to add more stone, you can, but you're buying yourself time to get to the problem to get it done. And if you just want to get it all done, then you can sit there and lightly grade it and then put stone down on it and then regrade it again, and you'll have a perfectly nice driveway. That's the ideal solution for this. But right now we're going to do a temporary fix for myself, because I'm going to come back and address it. But we got to address this weed problem. So I'm going to show you how I use my TR3 on the back of the tractor. I'm going to go on to grade this driveway real fast. We're going to take care of our weed problems, and we're going to make it look a little bit more user-friendly for a short period of time, till in a month or two I'm going to wind up getting gravel eventually, and we're going to regrade and reset this driveway up again. So, but today I'm going to just show you how we're going to fix this problem to get it maintained. You know, again, we're just buying time. But a lot of people probably wouldn't do anything to this driveway, and that's fine. But there's other people out there that really want to attack the problem before it gets worse, and this is the best way to do so. And like I said, if you do this twice a year, it's very easy. If you don't do it twice a year and you let this go, it's going to get out of control. And you know, some people put all kinds of herbicide down on this to kill the weeds. Like I say, there's a lot of different ways to go about doing this. I personally just like to use implements. It's fast, it's quick, and in 10 minutes I can be done. And I can get this done quicker than me talking on this video. It's that simple with having the right piece of equipment. And that's kind of what makes life a little bit easier. And when you have the equipment, you can fix the problem at any time. And those that are fortunate enough to have tractors, the kicker on the end is what attachment is best to get this job done. I like the TR3. It works out for me on the back of a tractor. Maybe it'll work for you, and if that's something you're of interest. But you know, even just a basic blade will work just as fine. But you need to have something that will able to scrape these weeds off and the bigger they get and the deeper they go, you're less likely to be able to just scrape it with a blade. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, it's your best interest to get on it now. Don't let it wait, because I have a lot of people I know that try to attack these driveways, and right now, because it's so hard, they can't penetrate into the gravel. You need a special tool that has the ability to get in and break up gravel. And a lot of people don't have that type of tool, or they don't have the attachments that are necessary to make it dig deep. And I'll talk about that in a little bit when we talk about the TR3. I want to show you an example when I was talking about driving on your driveway and to kill your weeds. This is where my girlfriend likes to drive up in the driveway and edges to pull into her spot. And you can see she just starts to navigate right here and initiate a turn into her parking area right here. So bottom line is, the more you can drive on the outside of your grass, the center of your grass, and down to your edges, you will kill a lot of your weeds, and that's a good form of weed control once you get this under control. But a lot of people stay right dead center, two-track, and all the way down their driveway, and that is why you don't have a lot of weeds. If you go up by my barn area, there's so much traffic between skid steers, excavators, tractors, trucks, trailers, etc. You know, there's really no grass growing at all up on my pad. It's because it's constantly, machinery's constantly going over it. Most of the repairs I have to do to my driveway are not even near the barn. They're all back here, because this is the main driveway and people two-track up and down the driveway. But to maintain a good driveway, you just want to make sure that you have an ample amount of stones that have the fines and the stones bind together to create a good solid base to alleviate your potholes and to basically stay crowned so the water sheds off. Now there might be a time where I might have, say, an edge be a little bit higher. You know, you can eventually scrape that off if you have to, but as long as your stone and everything crowns and you're not having settling puddles in your driveway, I wouldn't really worry about it that much. You know, it's real easy to watch a video and everybody points out all the flaws. There are flaws, and they're not going to be perfect. It's a driveway, but it gets the job done, and that's all I care about at a reasonable amount of cost. You know, if I was doing it for somebody else for money, you know, there's a lot of ways you can gouge people for a buck. I'm trying to tell you, you don't need to get gouged, and that's why doing an assessment of your own drive is what you really want. You know, because the bottom line is this, you know, if you're walking on your driveway right now and you have standing water, obviously you have a problem in your gravel driveway after a rainstorm. Whether you have to add gravel, maybe you have a pothole problem, because that's where you're going to start to have a pothole problem if you have standing water sitting in a spot. Because eventually that water is going to become soft, and like I said, people are going to drive over and it's going to dispel the stone out and it's going to create a hole. You got to address these problems, because when they get too bad, they're just going to get out of control. And you really don't want to do a temporary fix. You want to at least make an effort to do it permanently. So those are just my thoughts on it. And you know, today, like I said, we're just going to re-clean this up, attack our weed problem, re-crown our driveway, knowing the fact that we have to get additional stone in here at some point. And right now we're just biding time and doing some maintenance. That's it. Now, some people may not even bother doing this, and there's no rule that you have to. I just happen to have the tool. I'm going to do it now because I know it's easiest to deal with it now, and I really don't want to grade and dig into my gravel driveway to resurface it at all. So guys with power rakes may choose to do so. For me, I don't see no benefit of that, but I will move stone around just by dragging it. So box scrapers, straight blades, this is a good time for you to use your tools. Now, the one thing I have to tell you is certain pieces of equipment work better when the ground is wet. So sometimes you might be wanting to wait if you don't have the tool that has the ability to dig into hard surfaces, like a box blade and even a straight blade. You might want to wait till the weather is wet, because it's a lot easier for you to drag and to rip up your driveway. But for me, with the tool that I have, dry, wet, it doesn't matter. We can get the job done. You know, it doesn't matter any time of the year. So that's kind of what I'm going to show you here, and show you what I do, and hopefully it's something that you may be able to mimic based on the tools that you have. So up here is an example of my pad area around the barns, and it's pretty vast, and it's going to take a lot of stone in here. But what I want to show you is that there's so much concrete, crushed concrete in here that had big rocks and fines, and it just looks like a mud pit when it rains. And what it really needs to do is maybe have maybe a little bit of the layer scraped off if there is mud, because mud and gravel really don't go well together, even on your driveway. So if there's some mud that was left in my driveway, I want to basically break that up with my tool. But in here, because this is heavily traveled, there's no grass in here at all on the pad, but there's so much activity. And we're going to cover this another day about how to really get this to blend. But I want you to understand that this is a good example of where there's really no gravel in here. Even though it's a hard base, it needs stone. And that's why that main driveway, it's so important to have the ample amount of stone down, and it keeps you from being in wet, muddy conditions. And you know, that has made a big difference, you know, since I put that stone down. And I really do like putting in the stone, but again, it's very expensive, and you need to be prepared to manage it once you do put it down. You can't put too much, and if you put too much of the fine stuff, you're just going to be spinning. You know, you just want to put an ample amount down to give you a nice coat, and you add it as needed, and that makes a big difference. And then if you're too high in one spot or too low in another, you drag it and drop it in the spot that you need it in. And it really works out well. And you just want to keep it all uniform with the crown on the top. It's relatively very simple, and but you just need to make that assessment as you go and what you really want in your driveway. And like I say, there are some people that could care less what their driveway looks like, and there's others that take a lot of pride in it. If you're one of those types of people, then you're going to understand where I'm coming from. If you're not, you know, then, you know, you can sit there and make argument. And bottom line is, sure, I don't have to do squat with this. And generally, I wouldn't do anything with my driveway, but because I want to maintain and make it look nice and make it work for me better than walking out in a mud pit, this is the best way to do so, in my opinion. So the tool that I'm going to use is called a TR3. It's a 72-inch model. It goes on the back of my tractor here. This is a 70-horse tractor. A lot of people I know don't have one. They sell different sizes and different models. This unit I bought used for around $1,500 for an attachment, and you can find these used, and they sell smaller units for even compact tractors. What's nice about a TR3 is it's kind of a combination of a box blade, but it has additional components to it that makes it nicer. Plus it has a comb in the back here that's something that's similar to something you'll find on a skid steer tool. They do a nice finish and basically able to kind of do a nice level drag and break up a lot of clumps. But what makes this unit different from a box scraper is that it has what's called a floating blade. And I'll give you a shot of what that looks like. And what that blade does is it floats and goes along with the driveway, whereas a box blade, you have to raise your 3-point arms to kind of adjust it. Here you don't have to. It's set and it kind of floats along your driveway. So it's kind of like how to make a level driveway without trying is what this actually does. When you get in here and look in the unit itself, this here, starting here and going all the way down, is a straight blade. And once it does it, it catches the stone and it actually kind of drags it. And this blade floats right here, and this is very heavy on the ground. And it'll drag stone without a problem. And then there's also scarf fire teeth that will come along here, and they are able to be designed to be put down deep into the ground if I want to really rip up that gravel. And they can take a day like today where the ground is very hard and are able to break it free. So it's a combination of many tools at once. And land planes have similar designs in the sense that they have teeth that will actually loosen up the soil and they're able to grade it. They do a nice job too. But the kicker on most of these, no matter what you do to create a crown, is you don't want to drive across your driveway as be completely level. When you're thinking about creating a crown, the idea is to disperse more of the material in the middle and less of the material on the sides. So this unit here has what's called gauge wheels. And what we're going to do after we run up and down the driveway and try to take out some of that weeds, we're going to kind of readdress the driveway, and we're going to try to crown the driveway and change the gauge wheels. And I'll show you how we do that with this unit in particular. But you can also, if you have a box scraper, or even if you have a straight blade scraper, you can make adjustments on your tractor where you can kind of angle it, and I'll kind of show you and talk about that also. It might help you in making that crown. So let me kind of take you out here. I'm going to show you from the tractor cab what it looks like to actually use this tool, and we'll go from there. But one thing I want to mention on a TR3 in particular, and I use this for almost every attachment that I own, you want to have what's called a hydraulic top link. And if your tractor is able to use a hydraulic top link, what it does, it's a lot of top links, you have to adjust this by a screw to get the right angle. And what a hydraulic top link allows me to do is stay in the cab and do adjustments to get this thing to run at a certain position. And it makes your life so much easier. And a tool like this, the TR3, which works wonders for horse arenas and dirt work, it does equally well in gravel driveways. You almost need to have a hydraulic top link for your tractor. If you don't, you're making one huge mistake. It makes a big difference, and I would not even think about trying this without it. And I use a hydraulic top link in pretty much anything I have a 3-point implement for, and I endorse them. And it doesn't matter what you get. They're like $200 to $300 at most, and they're well worth the investment. For the amount of time and frustration saved, you can't go wrong. They can tilt the machine back more than you will ever crank that arm back and forth. So it makes a huge difference. So let's show you how this thing works. Alright, to show you how this thing works, we're going to set it down on the ground, and then using a hydraulic top link, here's how you can adjust it, the proper adjustment. And then we're going to drive forward, and we want to make sure we don't gather too much stone. We're just trying to go straight, and we'll go and see how much stone we actually catch. I'm trying not to dig into the ground that much. Now I need to drop it down a little more, so I'll just drop it down like that. So let's go up and down. I'll drop it down a hair more. Now let's go see how this works. You can see us breaking into some of the center. So this, with the tractors, all back and forth. And what we're going to try to do is just keep going back and forth, grabbing stone, grading the driveway. Trying to rip those weeds out of the center line, even though they're not that deep. And also work the edges a little bit. So if you're using a box scraper or any tool that has a straight blade, the most important aspects of this is I'm not trying to dig deep. I'm just kind of, we're ruffling the surface a bit, but at the same time I want to go a little bit pressure to pull those weeds out. Now you can serpentine, you can go forward, you can do different techniques. Kind of work that gravel. I like the serpentine a lot. trying to stay in the center a little bit, not on the edges as much, because what I'm really worried about, I'm not really trying to clean off my edges as much today. I'm more worried about getting that center line kind of knocked out, but at the same time, I do want to work the edge line a little bit, but I want to do it when I crown. So my Scarfire teeth are going in the ground just a little bit, but enough to make a difference. Once you get your TR3 set to the proper desired angle, you really don't have to adjust it, and that's kind of what I'm doing. All I'm doing right now is just going back and forth. What I'm doing as I drive back and forth, I'm also redistributing that gravel in the low areas that need it, trying to make it a little bit more level. So I didn't want to bore you too much going up and down the driveway looking at that TR3, but you know what's nice is when you look between the leveling blade and the Scarfires, you don't want too much gravel to be built up. You want it to kind of flow out the back, so you always want to pay attention to how it's flowing through the machine. You know, that TR3 is designed specifically for working with dirt. You know, it grooms horse arenas, and that's kind of why I bought it initially. I use it on any kind of dirt that I need to level out and smooth, whether it's an outdoor riding arena, indoor arena, if I'm putting in a lawn for somebody, or if I'm doing land clearing. I use that TR3 for a lot of things, but it's so stout it works great for gravel driveways. So let's take a walk down the driveway and do an assessment of where we're at. I'm probably going to run down here a few more times, and like I say, we're going to crown, but I want you to take a look at what we've done to the driveway. So I do need to crown it, and there's no problem with that. And the areas that were compacted down are now covered, so I didn't usually use any additional gravel for that. There's a few weeds, not many, still that are in the ground that I see. Here's a weed that's here. So this weed isn't that deep, and I want to show you. This is where the root is. It's right here at the bottom. There's not much to it, but we just need to break it. But that's how shallow these roots are. They're not hard. They're very shallow. They just need to come out. But we kind of ripped out a lot of them. And there's some in here I can still see faintly. And we're going to continue going over this just a little bit. And if they do get popped out, they'll dry. But down this one center line here, I see some of them that still exist. But we took out a lot of our weeds as you look down this driveway. So we're making some impact. Now some of them may even die as they are, and if I crown the driveway they may die as well, but the best rule of thumb is to pull everything out, and be the better off that you'll be by getting rid of them. So, but the driveway definitely looks a little bit better, and we'll go through down the center. I'll show you a few more times, and then we'll start crowning it back. And like I say, since I own the equipment, I own the tractor, you know, I can come back and do this at any time. You know, if you're a homeowner, you can kind of continue, you know, do the same thing I'm doing, or you can do it by hand if you need to. But if you took like a pick or something to pull these out, it wouldn't take you that long. The one we started probably would only take about a half hour. But that's kind of where we're at right this second, and I'm going to go down it a few more times and just keep redistributing the gravel. I'm not doing anything other than redistributing, putting pressure, and ripping out weeds basically, and then we'll crown. And we redistribute a lot of that gravel, so the area, like I said, that was compacted down, is now have an actual coating. Now, do I need to buy more stone? Actually, no, not right now, because I just redistributed it, and I guess I'm going to just keep dragging it out a little bit farther. And that's what's nice about being able to do this when you want, because you can control when you need gravel and when you don't. And I try to put things off as long as possible until I really need it. And right now, this is a situation that I'm going to drag out a bit more. So I'm just making passes. It's not hurting anything. I'm just making and leveling and tearing up the weeds. And you can do this as long as you want. I'm just trying to get enough so I got that center cleaned out. And I don't see that many weeds left. There may be still some weeds that are there. And that's because I'm really not ripping this up. And if that becomes to be a problem, then you will probably have to drop the teeth and really start tearing it up a little deeper. But I'm trying to do it without doing that right now. I'm just trying to manage it, make it look a little nicer, and get a little bit more weed control. By doing something is better than doing nothing. I'm just going to make a couple more passes, and then we're just going to start crowning. I think that, as far as I'm concerned, it's good enough for now. And it'll be enough to get me by for several more months at least. But I'm really kind of happy with the stone. I don't think I'm going to order new stone this second, until we see how this settles. But I don't feel like I need new stone like I did before we assessed this. It makes me feel a little bit better after grading this out. So we pretty much have our gravel driveway done, and what I didn't show you at first is to show you how we kind of crowned it the best we could. Now, I don't have a lot of loose material to really push to the center. What we wound up doing is leveling, but I did get material into the center using the TR3 and setting it. And I'm going to show you how I set the TR3 to crown, for one. And number two, I'll kind of run it down here so you can kind of see it, how it eats into the center. Now, the one thing about the TR3, I think that when you are trying to crown, you want to have as much loose material as possible to really pull it into the center. I don't have it. If you have like a York rake or say a straight blade and you were running along the edges and you were really physically pushing stuff in, you'll probably have a better job and an easier job to crown than I did using this tool. This tool does not turn at angles. It's relatively straight. And that's probably the one criticism I probably would have a little bit about it is the crowning ability. But I think a lot of it also is my ability to kind of figure it out. But I'm going to show you how I figured out how I do crown, how I do move stuff. But I think it is a lot easier, say if I came in and I tailgated another load, which is what this driveway actually needs, is another load or two, tailgate it in here to really settle it in. But I'm just trying to get by right now, and I don't really want to spend another $800, $1,000. So what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to establish how you want to maintain your driveway, but maintaining it is going in and grading it to the point where you need to add stone. And you can make it as immaculate as you want, or you could just get by. And I've gotten by for many, many years not adding anything. So what I'm trying to tell you is there's a lot of ways to play, and it's only your opinion. Somebody can sit there and rag on me about this video about, you should have done this, you should have done that. Well, I don't need to, because I'll get to it when I feel like getting to it. And that's because I have the equipment. If you're paying somebody for it, sure, you're going to dump a lot of money for somebody and you're going to expect it to be done with added stone. But I'm not worried about that because I have the tools. So if you have the tools, you can do what you want when you want to do it. That's really the point of this. As far as my edges go, they're built up because of stone, and then grass grew up to it. Now, a power rake probably would do the best job possible to really hit the edges. The tools that I have and a land plane, they're basically have teeth, and when they go back and forth, you're going to have a ripping action. With the power rake, you're just actually like a rototiller, grinding it and kicking it inward. And if you're talking about really getting a nice fine edge, then a power rake probably would do it. But I don't have a power rake. To twice the money of that, actually a lot more than twice the money of that TR3. And like I said, I only paid $1,500 for that TR3 used, and I know you can pick them up all the time around that range, bigger ones or smaller ones. And you just have to have the right equipment to pull it. And you know, for the equipment that you have, not all tools can actually work a gravel driveway because of it being so hard in the base. So, but it's constant maintenance, and the bottom line is, as long as you maintain it and you keep working it and attacking your weed problems before they get out of hand, you're in better shape. And I think my driveway looks pretty good. I'm happy about it, and you know, that's all it counts, is what makes you happy. So let me show you now how to set the TR3 up to do a crowning of the driveway. So the first thing you need to do is take these Scarfire teeth, and I had them down just maybe penetrating our gravel driveway, maybe a ½ inch to maybe an inch at most. What you're going to do now is you're going to actually retract them and pull them completely up so they're not actually making contact with the ground. That's the first thing you're going to do. Second thing is you have these gauge wheels. Now what you're going to do with the gauge wheels is, I'm leaving this one in the middle position. There's 5 actual holes. I'm going to leave it in the middle position because I'm not really looking for an extensive grade. Now I can move it backward 1 if I wanted to, or actually 2. You got to kind of play around with it where it sets, but you want to kind of stay neutral. The other one, I actually moved it forward. So what I'm going to actually have is it higher in the middle and lower, and it's kind of stable in on the backside, on the outside rail. What's going to happen is, as I drive down the driveway, you're not going to see much movement. You know, maybe a little bit movement here, but you're going to see more movement toward the center. And you'll actually see the stone actually catch and kind of fall, and you're going to see more of a pile in this end. And also, your grading bar needs to be in float position, meaning you don't lock it down where it's like a box scraper. You want it to float through the ground. So what I'm doing with this whole tool is I'm redistributing all the stone in my driveway to what's based upon what is considered level. And the more stone you have, the more you can actually incorporate into the center. But this is a trial and error event. It's something you're going to have to figure out what works for you and watch. Now the other important thing is, how do you set this tool down to work? Now ideally, you have the comb in the back and you have the floating bar. Ideally, when you set this down into the ground in the starting position, and it's the same thing holds true when you're actually using the teeth, you want to make sure the bar and the comb touch at about the same time, and that's your starting point. And if you are not getting the penetration you have as far as the movement, you can actually adjust the hydraulic top link to move it a little bit forward. But it's going to be a trial and error thing. You're going to have to watch how that stone kind of moves across. The bottom line is, I'm trying to move everything toward the middle the best I can. And because it's offset, but it's straight, it's going to grab on this side and kind of feed itself over this way. And that's kind of the point of this. But this is a trial and error event. So to set this down, I guess I'll show it to you real quickly. It's like almost like you're adjusting this TR3 before you even start. Is, again, we want the tip of the comb and we want the blade to actually sit even. So I'm on the tractor. I'm going to set down my TR3, and I want to see if the comb and the blade are hitting at the same time. Now here you see the comb is, the blade actually sets, and I'm watching so I can adjust from the cab the comb to go up or down. And I want to make sure that they're pretty much even, and I'm watching the floating bar as it goes up and down those 2 pieces of metal, whether I'm hitting or I'm not. We'll see if that works right there. And again, this is going to be trial and error. So what we're looking at right now, we want this comb right here to touch about the same time as we want this. And what's going to happen is, this bar is straight. Again, like I said, it's staggered, and it's going to be raised up on this end and tighter to the ground on this end. If I wanted to get tighter to the ground, I can move this one actually back a little bit farther too, and it puts more downward pressure on this one side. So let's go out, run up and down the driveway a couple of times, and let me show you, looking backward, what it looks like back here. And what you'll see is more stone going toward the center here and less stone over here. But unfortunately, like I said, I only have so much loose stone, so it's not going to give you that appearance of crowning like it would if I was really pushing it over, but it is moving the stone in toward the center, and that's not a bad thing. Plus it's leveling it down. So that's kind of where we're at. The one thing also I want to point out is when you run this tool, you want to stay at a consistent speed. So we don't have, like I said, a lot on the driveway. And this is one of those things that I think you have to kind of find what works best for you, your spot. So hopefully that video is a little helpful for you guys to kind of get an idea. But the bottom line is this: with a gravel driveway, you got to do something with it. And if you can attack it with the tractor and you have the attachments, that's the best thing you can do. Even if you got to be out here by hand and whacking on those weeds, or whether you take yourself a torch and burn the weeds out of the center as they're growing, if that's something that bothers you, then I suggest you do that. All I'm telling you is the longer those grasses sit into your gravel, the deeper they're going to go, and the deeper they get to go, the harder they are to get out, and you're definitely going to want a tool to do that. You know, ideally though, you know, and I used to do this a lot in the past, is I would just get in here and just tear this driveway and dig deep with the scarf fires, loosen up the soil, and just repact it by driving over it, and it worked out fine. But, you know, I know that I've put in the 57 base down. I'm watching it actually start to bind with the fines, and I really don't want to disturb what's strong underneath, but I do want to add to it. And you have to understand too, this limestone 57, it gets crushed, it gets broken over time. I have excavators and dump trucks and heavy equipment running up and down my driveway a lot, and I can see the stone even right in front of me, where they're actually starting to break and get into smaller pieces. So you have to constantly add, and you've got to constantly groom your driveway to make it look nice. And it's not that expensive, but you just have to maintain it. Because like right now, do I really need to get stone? No. Can I get by without adding stone? Yes. I could probably do it for a few years, to be honest with you. But you got to have a tool to grade it, because what's going to happen is over winter time, you know, we're going to plow the driveway. If my buddy comes over here, he's infamous for not using shoes on his plow, and he would whack in here and dig a little hole into my gravel, and my gravel would be thrown over under my grass, and he would just cut too deep and it caused me nothing but a pothole. So you got to constantly maintain and grade your driveway, and you'll be in better shape in the long run, and you'll be happier for it. You know, I have a lot of area for driveways and parking areas, and I need to add a lot of gravel in different spots, and we'll talk about that at a later date. But this is my main driveway. Everything comes up and down this driveway, from tractors to trucks to cars, and it needs to look good, and I'm happy just by maintaining it. And that's really what this video is about, just to maintain and how to assess. So thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful, and I'll talk to you guys soon.